It's a
It's
pleasure
good.
pleasure to meet you. I did some research on the show and you, and I knew you were a designer, so I was intrigued to learn about that. So yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. You're very welcome.
Thank you for joining me today. I'm really excited for this interview because I know that you had a very exciting transformation in your journey and to be where you are today. And in my show, I like to show people that, this transformation journey is always ongoing and it's like training for fitness. There will be things thrown at you and how you continue to grow and flourish into becoming the someone that you can always be better and better.
Mm.
So I'm really excited to have you join us because I think you're going to show them how to build their muscles.
Well, I really think that's a good place to start because today I'm still going through something. It's just different than what I was going through at that point. There's always transformation happening. There's always evolution happening. There's always growth happening. And I think that's a really important thing is I'm not finished. I'm not at my final form yet, right? So, yeah, let's talk about building some emotional and spiritual and self-improvement muscles.
Yes, let's go.
I love it. I love it.
I was reading about your experience and I was intrigued for the most because for most of us, daydreaming about status, wealth, image, and having it all going, we felt like we have to be this. It's like once you reach a financial status, once you reach an image, you are done. You're great, and a lot of people aspire to be that and all that. But for someone who is going through at that point, I know you're going through some mental challenges. What is the script that you were telling yourself every day? Because obviously you're so good looking and everybody think that wow, he's great, and but you have a different script.
Yeah, the script for me was the next thing will be the key that opens the door to happiness. It was a reflection. So when I was young, I felt insignificant. I didn't get a lot of attention from women, and we didn't have any money. So in my mid 20s, I thought, well, if I just get in really good shape, find a way to make money, and then just get an attractive partner, I feel like everything will kind of just work itself out. And to your point, in my mid 20s, I had that. I had just won a bodybuilding show. My girlfriend was a model, and I had a 6-figure income. But I always felt like there was something missing. That was the script. The script was you've kind of accomplished everything that you wanted, but it's not getting internal. None of this external success is translating to internal confidence, self-belief, self-worth, self-trust. You're still insecure. So yeah, for me, I think the simplest answer was it must be the next key. There's got to be another key that I haven't found yet. That was the script, unfortunately.
So when let's say you join a competition, a bodybuilding competition, and you win it, at that point of winning, do you feel so happy, or do you immediately feel like something is lacking? You felt lost.
I don't it wasn't lost, but it was disappointment. It was it was underwhelming. It was an underwhelming experience. So we crossed $1 million in our business and 1 million podcast listens on the same day, like sometime last year. Honestly, it was kind of underwhelming. Not that I'm not
What is
super proud. I'm super proud, and this is all a dream. I think it can be underwhelming when you have a certain expectation that you're going to feel a certain way, and then you imagine that that's the way it has to be, and then when it's not, you feel guilty for not feeling better about it.
so? How do you feel after you feel overwhelmed? What was in your mind?
Uh, if like the bodybuilding part that time,
The $1 million.
oh, it was just like another day. It's like, okay, time to get back after it. Time to yeah, we crossed it, but nothing really changed internally. That's the hard thing, right? It's not like we went from 0 to 1 million. We went from 999,999 to 1 million. So I had a long enough time to celebrate along the way. So yeah, it was just cool, super excited. I'll take a minute to celebrate, but now I have to go do all the things that led us here and just keep doing that essentially forever. That's kind of how it works.
So I always have this thinking, well, not always. After I've healed, I felt poor before I received healing. I felt really poor. I told my husband that it seems like we have it all, but I felt like living in poverty. That's what I told him.
Mm.
And but after I received healing, I have this interesting feeling. I feel rich. My financial status did not change, but I felt rich. And I came to this feeling like if I cannot enjoy my $10, I wouldn't be able to enjoy my $1,000,000. That's how I feel. And therefore, I also feel like along the way, it's like that makes me really enjoy the process a lot.
Mm.
So it kind of mirrored a little bit about what you said as well, because along the way, you have already seen your progress and you're so excited about it. So you have been celebrating, and then you think that something is going to change at the $1,000,000. But the truth is, you have been enjoying the whole process.
Yeah, yes, and some of the process was terrible.
Yes.
I love this and this is a dream come true. And there are some days where it's like, I don't know how I can do this. So that's a piece of it for sure. I think it's the fact that my business partner said this to me one time, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But he said, Kev, you're gonna set goals for like 5 years down the line. And by the time you're about to accomplish those goals, they're just not going to matter to you anymore because you've become the type of person who's capable of accomplishing them. And I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. I think it's pretty accurate. Yeah, I think now I think it's pretty accurate, but
Yeah.
I think it's the juggling act of gratitude and ambition. I was super grateful because I think in my mind, I assumed $1 million and 1 million listens meant something different than what it actually meant. Just like I'm sure I thought winning a bodybuilding show meant something different than it actually meant. So when it happens, you think, okay, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And then I think for some people, they say, well, there's no point in continuing, depending on what it is, right? But for me, it was like, all right, it's different. It's definitely different than I thought it was going to be. Now it's more, I don't really care that much about the listens. That kind of switched. It's not really, it's about the impact more than the measurement of the impact. And I think that was just a very unique, I still track the listens every day. I track the bank account every day, right? But something changed internally. I think that's the best way to put it.
What changed?
The best answer I can give you is I went from running from something to running towards something. So I think I went from feeling just scarcity all the time and working from a place of scarcity and not enoughness and fear to working more from a place of abundance and flow to a degree. But I think abundance, you can run. I mean, if there's a bear chasing you, you could run pretty fast. But you're probably going to sprint and then burn yourself out, and that's not good. But if you train, you can run a marathon. I think that's kind of where we're at now is we've trained. I did a lot of sprinting and I did a lot of running from stuff I was afraid of. And now it's more, let me look into the future and let me try to define a future that I love. And then let me try to run towards that. And to your point, if I can enjoy the process as much as possible on the way, then that's kind of a game that I can't really lose, right? I mean, if I set those rules and I determine that game, it's my game to win at the end of the day.
I read about your story in the beginning when you're going through some mental challenges. I wanted to ask, because my podcast is about encouraging people to recognize and finding the bravery, the courage to go for healing, to find themselves, instead of going through the very comfortable, very safe norm that they are used to. I wanted to ask, at what point do you recognize that something is wrong in your mental state?
I was home alone one day. So I lived with my girlfriend and we lived with another couple in this really nice apartment in the city in Boston, Massachusetts. And I was home alone one day and I was playing video games. I was off of work And I remember thinking to myself, if this is what life is, it's this dull, boring experience, I don't know if I want to do it anymore. I wasn't suicidal. I didn't have a plan to do anything, but it was more, I was just checked out. There has to be more to life than this. I told my girlfriend when she came home, and she said, I think you need to go to therapy. I think that would be like really helpful for you. And I said, don't need it. Don't need it. I've got tattoos. I'm a bodybuilder. No, don't need it.
Yeah.
It's not going to work for me. And then eventually my ego left. It let me say, yeah, let me try this. And I went to therapy. And I think that was the first time where I was able to gain a new level of self-awareness. And I realized that my dad walking out when I was young obviously impacted me in more ways than I had realized. And there were some other family things that in retrospect affected me way more than I thought. So that was the first time where I really started to look inside of me. I had worked really diligently on getting in good shape externally, but I never did any of the internal work. And that was me going into the mental gym, I guess, for the first time. But even then, I mean, I had the awareness, but I still ended up really having suicidal ideations a few years later, just because if you don't hear the whisper, or if you ignore the whisper, there might be a scream coming. And I heard the whisper, and I was depressed, and I was anxious, and I was traveling all over the place for work, and I wasn't sleeping enough, and I didn't feel like I could lock down a relationship because I was always traveling, and I could tell my mental health was getting worse. But I thought getting to a certain amount of money would fix it. That way, it was. I know I'm not happy, and I know I'm not fulfilled, and I'm definitely depressed, and I definitely have anxiety, which I've never really experienced before. But I just have to keep pushing because the key that I'm going to get on the other side will open the door. So I heard it. I heard the whisper. I just thought that I could build a wall between the whisper and I wouldn't be able to hear it anymore. And unfortunately, that was not the case.
Mm. Was it something that happened in the therapy room that, like, was it different when you step into the therapy versus when you come out? What changed in the therapy room?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, everything. I remember I was standing, so it was in downtown Boston, and in downtown Boston there's a lot of old buildings that are they have very cool design. Something I'm sure you appreciate a ton as somebody who's so into design. No? Well,
I don't know. But the way you put it is funny. Okay.
This building had this beautiful spiral staircase. And you walk, it was nice. You walk up, and eventually you get to the floor that has the therapy and the counseling on it. And I remember thinking to myself, one, I don't want to talk about myself, and I don't want to talk about anything deep. I'm not going to cry in front of this person. I've never met this person. I don't want to do any of this. This is terrible, and I don't want to do this.
Exactly what I tell myself. Each time didn't work. I always sat there the first session and I go, tell me what you have got rather than I tell you what I've got.
Same.
Didn't work.
Same. I was shut off. You're not going to get anything out of me. Then I felt super safe. So I felt super safe sharing with this person. That was a huge piece of it. And then I started crying like I didn't want to. That was like the first thing that happened. And I would say at the end, I felt lighter. I felt like I knew myself at a deeper level. I felt excited. I was hopeful. I was proud. I felt like I had more self-awareness. Going in, I thought it was going to be a nightmare. Leaving it, I've never looked at therapy the same. I think it's hyper valuable. I think our ego gets in the way. Obviously, you got to find someone you trust, right? But yeah, it went from thinking it's the worst thing ever and it's not going to help me at all to something that I scream from the rooftops. It is something, especially as somebody who, I am masculine and I have tattoos and I'm in the gym. it doesn't matter. That's not going to fix the stuff that I got going on inside of my head. So therapy was a game changer for sure.
How did you find this therapy? Like, for me, I find that it's really challenging sometimes to find a good therapy. Like to find someone, like I changed a few therapy along my way. Sometimes the therapy makes you feel worse than you before when you enter the room.
Mm.
And some of them is just like, wow, where did you come from? So how did you find your therapy? How did you go through the process of finding your therapy?
Probably not the best. I think I Googled it and just picked the first name that came up. Honestly, I think that's how I did it.
I did
I
that too.
ugh. So I think maybe I got lucky. I'm not
No, I
saying to
got
do it
I
my
got a
way.
little bit more process. I had I would Google it and then in my head I'll think of a number and then I would
So similar,
yeah.
similar approach. I I have an understanding that I tend to work better with women than I do men.
Mm,
I was raised by women. My dad left. I have a weird relationship with men. That's a whole thing. I'm still working through that. I tend to be pretty comfortable around women. So I don't know. In retrospect, looking back, I think I've always been maybe more naturally vulnerable than the average person. So I wasn't really worried about it. It was just I'm looking for somebody who's a good listener, who I feel safe sharing with, who then can inject ideas. And I had two. I'm in the process of getting another one now. I went I had years without having insurance because starting a business is a whole thing. So there was no health insurance to be had. But I had a therapist when I was in Boston for a short time, and then I had another therapist when I moved after that. And those are the first two that I ever had, and they were both really good. They were both women, so I think that maybe that's a piece of it for me.
how was it like to grow up without a father figure in your life?
It's always hard because it was normal, because
Mm,
that's what I knew, but it always felt like I had to either lessen it, hide it, or pretend it didn't bother me at all. It was a
but
Go ahead.
but you said it's normal, so why do you have to hide it and pretend it? Because it's normal.
Sometimes we don't like normal. We don't like our normal. Just because it's normal doesn't mean we're okay with it, I guess. I
Mm,
I, I remember this was such a weird experience in retrospect. In maybe middle school, I don't remember what grade it was, but first day of school, one of the classrooms, introduce yourself, tell us what your mom and dad do for work. I don't know why
mm.
that. I'm like 8 years old. How do I know? I don't know what they do. But I
Mm.
remember saying my mom is in the medical field, and I
Is she?
remember, yes, that I was sure
Okay.
of. I knew that one. But I remember saying my dad is in construction. I
Oh,
didn't know. I had no idea. I didn't know my dad's name. I didn't know what he looked like. So I just remember saying that because I didn't want people to know. It's weird because it was normal, and I think one of the reasons I hid it is because I didn't want people to feel bad for me. I didn't want people to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Like I know, thank you, but I don't know any other life. This is the life that I know. I don't want you to look at me different. I don't want you to feel bad for me. I don't want you to treat me any differently. I don't want that. That's not why I would tell somebody. So that was a big piece of it. And then I've said this to other people who grew up without a parent. One of their parents wasn't around. And a lot of people have said this has been their experience too. The friends that I had, their families kind of like tried to bring me into their family for a normal family experience.
oh dear.
Yeah, it was nice and it was thoughtful, but now in retrospect, it was like, I think a lot of my friends' families thought that I was kind of broken, and they just wanted to do their best to make sure that I didn't get more broken. So I'd get invited on vacations, and I'd get invited to come over for dinner and sleepovers and family events. Now looking back, I think it's because they were nervous about where I was going to go and what was going to happen. But I felt kind of like a charity case at times where people were trying to save me from my life. So That was a
Weird.
weird part of it. Yeah, that was a strange part of it. But I ended up meeting my dad when I was 27.
Hmm.
And that was one of the weirdest, most powerful, most transformative things ever of all time. Because I realized, one, this man, my life is way better than his is. He didn't take very good care of himself. He didn't work on himself. He didn't set goals. He didn't do a lot of the things that I was doing. That was one. Two, it gave me empathy and forgiveness, because I don't think he woke up one day and decided, you know what, I'm going to try to wreck this kid's life. I don't think that's what happened. I think he was going through his own human experience and he didn't handle it as well as maybe somebody else would have. Or imagine if he stuck around and he was terrible to me. Like, that wouldn't be good either. So, okay, that helps me. And it gave me... Oh, go ahead.
Sir, you were saying that you thought that you said that you realized that he didn't wake up thinking they're gonna wreck this kid, they're gonna do that. So you were upset with him growing up.
Yeah, I hated him. I never spoke to him, but I said some not very nice things about him to other people. Like, there were times where through the grapevine, I would hear that he had cancer or something, and I was like, I don't care. Like, why are you even telling me? I don't care. That type of stuff, just because I didn't, number one, I had no connection, and two, I never thought I was going to have to look this man in the eyes. So it's easy to say stuff like that if you never think you're going to see the person, right? It's easy.
But what made you upset about him? Was it because of the charity that people were extending to you? What made you not like him when he didn't even exist?
I think I felt it felt personal, even though
Okay.
I was a baby. So it was like, I didn't really,
Yeah.
it felt personal, and it felt like I would never do that. I would never do that to someone. I would get better and do better and work harder and be there, at least be there. I would do my best to make sure I'm a positive male role model and a positive figure. So I think it was that. And it was just, my life is, again, this is my normal, but my normal seems to be different than everybody around me. And I don't want to blame myself, because I don't think it's my fault, and I don't think it's my mom's fault. So I got to have someone to blame. So it was easier to blame him, I would say.
Yeah, I remember that in one of my podcast episodes, I talk about self-preservation. Like, we always need to restrict some of our memory in order to protect ourselves. Otherwise, we may hate ourselves so much. So I guess that's what happened when you needed an explanation of your situation.
Yeah. And I think it's just, again, it's the same thought of, my expectation is I would have done it differently than he did. So I can't imagine walking out on a kid. I just can't. And I also don't know what it's like to be him. So even that is maybe presumptuous. But yeah, it felt very personal. It felt very personal, and I was convinced that I was going to hate him forever, pretty much. That was kind of my thought. I never thought I was going to have to look him in the eyes. So that was a whole... You want to talk about transformation? That was one of the biggest, most courageous things I ever had to do. I had to do that. It wasn't even an option.
What was your intention when you go and meet him?
I don't know if I had one. I knew it was one of those things that you just have to do. Like, one of those things in life that you don't want to do. You have no desire to do. You have every excuse under the sun and the moon and the stars and the planets of why you shouldn't do it. I remember I was talking to one of my friends about it, and they said, are you going to go see him? And I said, I have to. I don't want to, but I have to. And they said, do you want me to come with you? And I said, no, I have to do it. This is something I have to do by myself. That my intention was to see what happened and see the potential unlocks that would come from it. I had no intention of forming a relationship. I had no intention of forming a bond. It wasn't about him. It was about me. It was, I need closure. I need perspective. I need to see what this is all about. And that was it for me. I wasn't thinking of much else because I didn't want to do it. So if I thought too much, I think I just would have not done it. Honestly, Catherine, I think I probably just would have not showed up.
And after you met him and you know that you're in a better position and all that, did you continue the relationship?
So I saw him that one time where we met, and then I saw him two other times. And then I had a moment where it was a couple of things. So one, and again, I don't mean this from an arrogant place. It's not that. I'm not necessarily the person to just like call on a random Tuesday and expect me to answer the phone. I run a business and we have a big team and I get to have the privilege of doing stuff like this. I'm not super accessible. He would call me and he would text me and he would get frustrated if I didn't answer. Like, okay.
Anxious.
Yeah, I know you don't have the right to get frustrated with me. That right is not yours yet. That is not a privilege you have. That was one piece of it. And then just one day, I posted a picture of my wife and I on Facebook. And he commented something about that mustache has to go. That was it. And I remember thinking, you have been out of my life for the first 27 years of it. Now you're somewhat in my life, and that's what we're doing. That's what you're going to post on my personal Facebook as my father? No. So I kind of realized that we were in very different places. Our trajectories are going in different directions. And I didn't want to lead him on knowing that this was never, ever, ever going to be what he thought it was going to be. So I just kind of let it die. And I haven't talked to him in maybe 2 years. So yeah, it went on for, it went on from 27 to 33. And we would talk, and I saw him, I think, 3 or 4 times. So I would see him maybe once a year. But yeah, I can't anticipate that ever coming back together again.
A long time ago, not say a long time ago, about a year or two ago, I ended a very, from my perspective, I always say from my perspective, and I guess that's from your perspective, because we all have different experiences and background, and sometimes there's no right or wrong. It's just so uncomfortable that you just can't carry on. And I feel that I just can't carry on my relationship. I call her narcissistic sister because I just can't go on anymore. And my dad actually put a bold statement out and said, you can never say no because she's family. But I think there's one thing that people don't understand. And I think that you have worked on yourself so much that you know to love yourself enough to say no, even if it's family. Because I think people don't understand that even if there is a relationship, a tie, a title, you really don't have a right to come and hurt me or come and disturb me or misalign my path just because you're family. It's not a right. It's not a given. I think that's what a lot of us, that's what something that I have been imprisoned for like decades because I was assigned to look after her by my mom because she's like a bully in the family and no one dares to go near her. So I think having that, you not having that stress that I have to look after him because his father, it's really loving kindness. It's compassion to yourself. And I think that's something that not many people recognize. And I think it is very important to recognize that because you don't want to be chained by something that is hurting you. So I think that's a bold one.
Well, family is, that is a lot of people's perspective. It's blood. You can't ever, look, we only have one life and unfortunately, you're the only one who really knows what aligned means. You're the only one who really knows what your deepest desires are and what you want out of this life. And there are people that will intentionally and or unintentionally misalign you. And unfortunately, the people that are closest to us, it's easiest for them to misalign us. even
Yes.
if they don't mean it. So I've
Yes.
always had a very weird relationship with the family thing because for me, it's my job to find a way to succeed in this weird existence. And if the people are around me aren't going to support me, I need to find people who are because it's hard enough to be successful. Never mind if
Mhm.
you're trying to pull people up the hill behind you. So I completely agree. I think it is one of the hardest but most necessary things. And I'll say it at the end with easier said than done, right? It's not an easy thing, but I do think to your point, the self-love, the self-compassion, the self-worth, the self-esteem that comes from setting boundaries, especially necessary ones, it can really change you as a person.
I actually want to go back to just now when you talk about other people with father mother figure and getting to know you in school and then thought that oh so poor thing and then decide to bring you into their family.
Mm,
Um, I wanted to talk about this because people don't understand that a lot of our perspective come from our experiences and a lot of times when we have our own experience and we are sensitive about it. Maybe that thing, if I lost my dad, touch wood, I would be hurt, but that's not your normal. And I think people don't recognize that. And I always tell my son this statement because he is like the most caring, loving, helpful person I have met. Seriously, I have met. And I always tell him one thing that kind of hurt him a little bit. And that statement is if people don't want that help, your help is no help.
mm,
And I always say that because the way the society teach, or rather the way the society or other people in general treat other people whose experiences is any different from them, it's kind of they are weird and they show a lot of sympathy, empathy, but it's not necessary.
mm. Yeah, that's a very powerful thing to tell your son for sure. That is like world class advice. That's super. I wish somebody told me that when I was young. That would have been super helpful for sure. For sure. Um, yeah, I think that the people that were trying to bring me in were trying to do the best that they could with what they had in terms of an understanding. And I had some father figures, which I think at the time were helpful. But now in retrospect, you look back, and so let's say I'm comparing my childhood of not having a father around to a friend of mine whose father is there every night and takes him out hunting and does all sorts of stuff. That's awesome. I would love that. Well, now in retrospect, when I look back, I can see that the whole family had an alcohol problem. At the time, I couldn't see. I saw the upsides of this is a family unit. You
Mhm.
guys have a house. This is a whole thing. So you have a bottle of wine every once in a while. Now in retrospect, to your point, I can look back and now I can kind of trace some of the problems that my friend had based on his experience or some of the problems that one of my other friends had based on his experience. So yeah, to your point, if anything now, I think the fact that I had such a unique perspective into various households has helped me have empathy for the way some other people have been raised. I didn't have an alcoholic caregiver. That would have affected me in a drastically different way. I didn't have an abusive parent. That would have affected me in a drastically different way. I didn't have those things. So what the benefits of it, I think, far outweigh what I thought at the time. I thought it was, well, I'm going to be brought into a normal family establishment. Now I just have so much perspective of, oh my goodness, that was normal for them. My normal
Mm.
was different, and now that gets passed on and passed on. So yeah, it's a very strange thing to reflect on from a higher place of awareness now.
So would you say that, or do you think that if they were not so empathetic towards a situation, you would actually feel better? Like you'll feel normal that people don't treat you this way?
No, I don't. At the time, at the time, I really enjoyed it because it was feeding needs of mine that I wasn't getting. Right? I didn't. No, no. I think it was. I think it was very beneficial, and I think without that, I probably would have felt more lost than I did. I didn't. I didn't really have a place to get. I didn't feel like I had a place to get good advice. Right? And
Where,
go ahead.
what is your mom's role in your life growing up?
My mom is somebody she works extremely hard. And if I've learned anything from my mom, it's grit, it's consistency, and it's reliability. I think she went like 23 years without missing a day of work or something. She just,
Oh, wow.
yeah, she is. But, my mom had a high school education. She didn't go to college. She didn't have any higher education. She didn't have a ton of life experience. So when I was trying to apply to colleges, I didn't really have anybody to help me. Nobody in my family had been to college, so that wasn't really an experience that I could borrow from someone. So my mom did the best she could with the lessons that she had. But it was never like my mom and I are close, but it's not like super emotionally close.
So she's more like I wouldn't say old-fashioned, but parents of the olden days where they have to work hard for the family, less emotionally available.
Yeah. And almost she almost played a father role to me in a way. So
Yeah,
it's
she had
because
to.
she had to. And so I lived with my mom and my grandmother. So I kind of had a mom and a dad. It was just different than, the way other people had it. And my mom worked nights. So my mom would leave for work at night. So I didn't see a ton of my mom just because of the way the schedules were lined up. So, but I think a lot of the lessons I got from my mom were just don't do this. Like, these are the things that I did that maybe weren't best for me in my life. Avoid those and you'll probably be okay. And that, honestly, that worked pretty well based on the opportunities to get into trouble that I had that just never really happened. All things considered, I never really got into trouble as a kid, which I don't know how that happened.
I know that you are very consistent in your business, you're posting, interviews and showing up for your business. But I wanted to ask this question because I'm not so consistent, right? I'm somebody who is, since young, I've been like that because my parents, we have 4 children. They have 4 children, not we, they have. So, and I'm the youngest. So, they don't have time for me. So I'm the last one. And the eldest one is always up to something up their sleeves, and they just leave to do whatever I like. I just follow the flow, so I don't have much rules to begin with. So I don't show up that often, and I follow my heart a lot. So I will go show up in my best form. So when you see me, I'm in best form, and when I'm healing, I would tell myself, all right, now I need to go on a vacation on life. I need to heal. So this is what I do. But I see that you're always showing up. How do you show up when you are working on something?
Oh man. Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know if I have a great answer. One, so much of this now for me is relatively unconscious. I mean, 90% of the questions you asked I've never heard before. So I don't know if I don't know if the answers are good, but they're
I
true.
need to interview every day.
Well, if you ask me the same questions in a year, the answers will probably be different.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
So
Yeah.
I show up as whatever version of me that I'm able to give, and I try to be very honest. I'm very overwhelmed right now in life because of everything that's going on with the business and the growth and all that. But I'm also super grateful, and this is all a dream come true.
Yeah.
That energy might come through today in a different way than it would a week from today. I always try to make sure that I heard this quote one time. I don't know who it was from, so I can't give them credit, but they said, share scars, not open wounds. So
Yeah.
right? So if I'm really struggling with something, I probably won't talk about it. If I was really struggling with mental health right now, I wouldn't have talked about a lot of what I talked about. But that for me it's a scar. I've talked about that so many times, and I have the perspective and I think about it and I reflect on it all the time. So I think it's that. It's just, what do I feel comfortable talking about and what do I think will be valuable? I think it's probably that first, honestly. What do I think will be valuable? And then what do I think will be comfortable? And I love this. I love, I enjoy this more than almost anything else on the planet. This is a dream come true. So I don't ever want to lose sight of that. And my goal in life is to be the type of person that I needed when I was sitting on the edge of a bed contemplating suicide. And the type of person that I needed would show up and add value and not hide stuff that he thought would be valuable to somebody listening on the other end. So I think that's the biggest piece. I try to, in a simple answer, I try to show up as authentic as I can.
I think that's really, really powerful because this is something that I learned when I went for my therapy session as well. This one statement, um, it really makes me go through life no matter what I go through. She said that it's not that Catherine is wounded. It's only a part of Catherine is wounded. So we can always isolate this part and then the rest of us can still function.
Mm.
And I think that's really powerful in two ways. The first thing is you don't feel so vulnerable. You know that you can still appreciate the many good things that are working very, very well for you. That's why you can still have the gratitude in life. You can still appreciate every day the sunshine, but you know that you're overwhelmed right now. But this is one part that you can slowly take your time to work through it. And the second part is people who are idealizing about a certain lifestyle, they need not feel like they have to be like I don't know, wearing a steel armor, being so strong, informidable, because it's all right to be crippling somewhere, but then still showing up.
Mm.
I think that for me it's very powerful to see that in you. That's something that I've learned and I'm still learning. The other thing is the statement that you said. Could you repeat about this? Show the scars and not the wound.
Yeah, don't share open wounds, share scars. So if you have something, if you're in the midst of a divorce and it's terrible and it's ripping your life apart, you probably shouldn't do a podcast episode on your divorce. It's just not going to be, it's not going to be constructive for you. If something happened to you 10 years ago and you've reflected and you've dealt with the trauma and it's no longer a trigger and you feel like there's some really good value that you could bring to the world from that, but it's a scar now, it's hardened. Now is the time to potentially share that as long as it's aligned.
I saw a quote before. I also don't know who said it, but it's also very powerful. It's like where the wound is the deepest is where the light shine the brightest.
Ooh.
So instead of saying that it's a scar, I would say that because it's a wound that you have worked on, the light has shined through so brightly, the scar now is actually your light. So essentially, when you are sharing your story from where I'm sitting, where I'm seeing, you are not sharing your scar. You are actually shining light on people who are going through it. And that gives people the confidence to work on their wounds. Because a lot of time when you are hurt, you felt so lonely. You actually don't even know where to start. And that's the scary part because you don't know where to get help and you don't know what happened. And in that interview that I shared, I told people about the episode of the miscarriage where the doctor would just give you a sentence and he said like, oh yeah, either the baby will drop out this weekend or you just come back and I'll just wash it out for you. And I just go, okay. But at that time, sitting at the clinic, you don't know what question to ask because you are wounding. You don't know, you can't even look at the wound, right? It's like, oh, I don't want to see it, just get it done. And my friend, she heard about it, that I'm going through this miscarriage, and she called me immediately and she has no filter. She told me from step one, okay, this is going to happen. You're going to get this cramp and it's not like a pregnancy. You're going to have breaks. There's no breaks. It's just cramp all the way. She had hers for 1 hour, just pain all the way. And I was like, okay. And, she shared, and this is going to happen. This is going to happen. It's too much information that the other one, I wouldn't share that with you here. But yeah. And when it happened to me, my daughter is actually sleeping just next to me, and it happened to me. And I can't be more grateful to her because of what she told me. I have no fear. I was able to play with my daughter when going through it because I know every step of the way it's meant to happen. It's okay. It's meant to happen. It's okay. And therefore, when you are sharing your scar, it's actually giving people who are wounding so much assurance that I'm going to be okay. This is part of it. That's right. That's what Kevin said. That's how I'm feeling. So I think for that reason, I feel like it's so important for me to get out of my comfort zone, forget about my looks, and just showing up because it's so important for people to know that you can get out of it. And
Yeah.
every day we go through lessons and it's okay. It's life.
Well, I think to your point, everybody feels alone. And
Yeah.
I don't know the odds. I don't know the numbers, but the odds of you going through something that nobody else has ever gone through are probably pretty low, all things considered, right? So I know, to your point, I've talked about mental health. I've talked many times about dealing with a pornography addiction. I can't tell you how many people have reached out and said, yeah, that's something I struggled with, but I never wanted to talk about it. It's like, I didn't want to talk about it either, but I have to. I don't really want to talk about it, but I have to because I know there might be somebody out there that it might help. And that's what I want to do. That's why I started this in the first place. I don't want to lose sight of that. That's important to me.
Yeah. So after a while doing your next level university, it felt more like a responsibility to be as open, as vulnerable as possible so that you normalize the ugly, sad, whatever that people are going through.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the
Yeah.
reasons we're so consistent. I have to be. I have to do an episode every day. There is no other option. I have to. It's just the way it is now. There's no other option. We can't miss. It's not allowed. We have to do an episode every day. That's what we signed up for. But I also understand that's not what everybody wants, right? So that's my responsibility, and that's a responsibility I intend to uphold. Everybody else has their own level of responsibility for themselves.
Do you ever go on holidays, and what happened when you go on holidays?
My wife and I went to Scotland last year, and my business partner and I recorded 21 episodes
Beforehand.
in 2 days. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so we would make sure that we didn't miss. So there is travel, there are weddings, we do get sick, that type of stuff, but we always find a way.
That's true. When you set an intent, it will be done.
There's no other option. There's no other option. We will find a way to get it done.
Is there a goal of your personal growth that you're working towards right now?
Get a new therapist. I've done a
Get a
lot
new
of
therapist?
Yeah, get a new therapist. I've done a lot of work on my own, and I've done a lot of work with my wife, and I've done a lot of work with my business partner. I mean, we have a personal development company, so we're always having deep conversations about what's going on internally, so that's a benefit. But I think it's time for me to go back into therapy with a new awareness and unlock more of the fear of failure and the fear of judgment and the fear of disappointment. That's a big one for me. Work through that. Where does that all come from, and how do I exist with that, and then try to do better with it?
For people who are afraid to go to therapy because they think that, there is an image to going to therapy, what do you have to say for that?
I think the image, okay, let's think. Let's paint two pictures. One, a person who is super stubborn, who thinks that everybody's going to look at them a certain way, who isn't willing to do the hard but necessary work for themselves and those around them, or the person who shows up with humility and says, look, I'm scared, I'm nervous, I'm afraid this is going to make me look weak, but I'm going to do it anyway. That second person is the person that I aspire to be. The first person it just comes off as rigid and stubborn, and nobody wants to be around somebody who's rigid and stubborn. And at the end of the day, you are the vessel with which you have to go through this entire existence in. If the better you know yourself, I'm convinced the more influence you have over your outcomes. And one of the best ways to get some extra self-awareness for you is go talk to somebody who understands how all of this works at the deepest level, because I know I don't. I do way more than I used to, but I didn't understand any of that in the beginning. I had no idea any of this was traced back to childhood. So when your car starts making a weird noise, you go to the mechanic.
Mm.
When your leg feels a certain way, you go to the doctor. Maybe you're not feeling any way. Maybe you don't feel off. Maybe you don't feel depressed. Maybe you don't feel anxious, but we have checkups for a reason. I think therapy is the same thing. You don't have to necessarily have an intention. You don't have to commit to a certain length of time. It's a checkup. See what comes of it.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that going to therapy is something that people should do, like a regular checkup, just to check in, because so many times we feel like it's normal, but it's actually not normal.
Well, that was the theme of the whole talk today. What is normal? Normal, just because it seems normal doesn't mean it's healthy. I mean, that's a whole thing. That was the theme of our talk today.
Yes. So when I'm doing my podcast interview, I always make it a point to read enough about my guests, but not enough to know it all, so that when I go in, it can feel like very refreshing, something new.
I got that for sure. This was wonderful. This was a wonderful experience from me, from my end. It's very clear you did research. I love the questions. I love the digging. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
I appreciate your time today, and I think people can learn a lot from this episode, and I hope that they continue to grow and continue to heal themselves and continue to find the alignment.
Thank you for having me and allowing me to pour into the audience.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello everyone. That was quite an episode with Kevin from Next Level University, isn't it? I did enjoy the whole process, and I must say from the get-go, I felt more like I'm catching up with an old friend when I've never met for a very long time. It was very easy. It was very easy it was very easy to draw parallels from what I've learned, and seeing that, just confirming that, life can be such a breeze when we chose it to be. And sometimes we just need that extra tool to make our life easier. Like, for instance, if I have a pair of chopsticks and I'm not efficient at it, and it would be better if I use a spoon to eat my bowl of rice or cereal, and just finding that spoon would have made life so much easier. And going to therapy, finding the right therapist, or going to a therapy session is something like that. Going to a therapy session is having that someone to show you, hey, look like you're struggling with the chopstick eating a cereal, would you like a spoon? Sometimes it's just as simple as that can really bring about that switch in your perspective from dark to brightness. And I really like that statement that he said. I think I'm going to misquote it, but it's something along the line about share your scars but not show your wound. And I like to add to that about the fact that when you see the scars of someone and it felt like a bright light shining its way on your path, know that your wound is meant to be that bright light that is holding its space like a scar. It is meant to be. We all go through some wound. It's not meant to hurt us. It is meant to lift us up so that we can enjoy the next chapter of our life, or enjoy the journey of becoming someone. Think of the time when you were learning how to ride a bicycle. It wasn't easy. It was difficult. It was a lot of frustration. You felt like giving up and you want to put the trainer's wheels on, but your parents say no. And in the end, when you're finally on the bicycle and you look back, oh, you don't need that training wheels, And going through life, growing up, is very much like that. Every step of the way, sometimes learning something new or going through a life lessons is challenging. It is going to take moments. It's going to take sweat, tears, sadness, hurting, feelings. It's going to take all of that. But once you have crossed that, when the situation presents itself to you a second time, depending on your practice, maybe third time, fourth time, I don't know. But my point is, one day you're going to look at it and go, that's nothing. That's really nothing. So if you were to take the bicycle experience for your life, then you wouldn't have to take it so hard upon yourself. You don't have to write such a negative script in your mind when things happen. And hopefully that would allow you to love yourself more unconditionally. I really like that, and I really like that for you. I really hope that everyone get to find their lovely everyday and really see life challenges as a fitness program, and know that there is no rules in this lifetime except one, which is to be in alignment with yourself, to know yourself, be in alignment, and love yourself unconditionally. I really like the know yourself. That's the tagline of my son's high school, know thyself. And I think the best journey will begin with that. And thank you, Kevin, for sharing with us.